A year or so ago, at this time of the year, I was in sunny Orlando, and early one morning I had to go down to where the pool area was to just check on a time that their restaurant was opening, and there was nobody there. And there was this beautiful pool, long, wide pool, palm trees around and sunny. And I decided to do something I hadn't done for years. There wasn't anybody there, so I really wasn't bothering anyone else. I backed up and ran as fast as I can and did a cannonball. Any of you all know what a cannonball is? You roll yourself up and make as big a splash as you can in the water. And I think it was a pretty good one. Matter of fact, I almost was wishing some people were there to give me a grade on my cannonball. Well, in our gospel reading today, Jesus does a cannonball. He certainly would wake anybody up around that pool, and he shook the water, made waves, and so on. Now, I could tell you that, first of all, Jesus is making sure people don't have any doubt that he is part of the tradition, that he is adhering to the Torah, to the law. Very much so. He's even making the law a little bit more difficult. I could tell you that he's laying out a code of ethics, a new ethic for his followers to adopt as their lifestyle, their way of life. And that would all be true. But that conclusion, that interpretation of the text probably would have, it took me about 10 or 15 minutes after reading it. What's he doing? Looking at the different scriptures that talk about the law, about the Torah. But that really isn't going deep enough. That would be lazy. So I try not to be lazy in preaching. Sometimes I get lazy. I try and work on it and listen to the text. And that's what we've been doing in our Bible study. We're trying to engage the text. Allow us to come to the Bible story with our feelings, where our situation is right now. Try and let the Bible story greet us a bit and let us know what Jesus is telling us to do through what he did and how that story interacts. Or we go to the Bible story and, my goodness, it starts to tell us stuff about ourselves that we hadn't bothered to really look at. So I decided to really engage in this text. And what's it telling me about myself? And through me, each one of us. And I'm going to zero in on the fourth commandment that we listened to. Not to swear. Now, first of all, get it up. When they're talking about swearing, they're not talking about cuss words. They're talking about, God be my witness. This camel that I'm telling you is only 4 years old, and it can carry consistently this much weight. Or you could get the same thing at the used car dealer, couldn't you? Something along those lines. Swear to God, it's a great mobile. So he's talking about people swearing on the Bible, on God, and he says you don't do that. You can't speak for God, you can't put God's seal of approval on what you're saying. But he also tells them not to swear on anything else. He tells them, you can't bind any of these things. The temple belongs to God. The Jerusalem, if you swear on this city of Jerusalem, on its mighty rocks, of its walls. This is a good camel. Can't do that. He says, say yes or say no. Well, what's he getting at here? He doesn't like people swearing because it can be disingenuous? Certainly, swearing falsely. Saying this car only has 100,000 kilometers on it when you've turned the speedometer around a couple of times. That's unlawful. That's wrong, and Jesus would agree with that. But he's saying something much deeper. When you swear, you're doing that to try and gain something for yourself, not taking into account the benefit of the camel in this case, or the person that you're trying to persuade in your swearing. And what you're trying to do, you'll find the same thing throughout all these commandments, not murder. Is not murder a situation where it's led up to a situation where this is the only way you can see to avoid conflict? Isn't divorce in this case, as they're showing it, a situation where you haven't been able to deal with conflict? Isn't swearing a way that you're not being able to deal with conflict? Remember, the Torah was written, the Ten Commandments were written to keep peace in the barnyard, to keep peace amongst the people. Because we know what happens when people steal, or when people bear false witness, when people commit adultery, when people murder, and so on and so forth. Particularly in their society, this matter of concerning oaths was very important. They were a very shame, blame-based society. This would be a society, if you did a quick and shifty deal, a dodgy deal with somebody in that family, the whole family felt that they were shamed, that their name was taken in disrepute, and they would have to get back at it. They would have to settle that score. So, initially, the commandments were written to make sure these transgressions didn't happen amongst people, to keep peace. But what Jesus is saying, the law has good intent, but it doesn't get at the root of the problem. It doesn't get at our motivations. Most of us, not all of us, don't want to deal with conflict. We put it off. Some of us have a passive approach. Somebody does us wrong, we don't say anything, we just sort of grin and bear it. But deep down inside, there's a resentment. And that creates disharmony within the person and ultimately disharmony in the group. So Jesus is doing a cannonball. He's using tough love to say, don't use all these different strategies to deal with conflict. Get at the conflict. Work at it. I'm saying you so. I mean, how would this work? Well, it would work somewhat like we're hoping it will work with our First Nation people. What's going down in the nation. Now, there's one approach. People, they broke the law and they're causing us the loss of money. So call in the police. Just throw them out. And if somebody gets hurt, that's their own fault. You put the bullhorn out 3 times, gave the message. And that would break the blockade, but would it deal with conflict? Remember, the history of our relationship with the First Nation people. They're just coming out. We've talked about reconciliation for the first few years. We put up on our, and recite every week, how grateful we are to be able to be on their land. That's nice, but how is that reconciliation coming down the root? Are we taking their grievances, their issues seriously? The only way to do that is not to swear, not to kill them, not to just run over them and forget that they have a grievance. It's getting down to the tough dialogue between two people. One says yes and the other says no. Okay, where do we find? I guess yes. And that takes time. It takes courage. I don't know about any of you, but it's not easy to feel comfortable enough in your own skin, to feel confidence enough to go against the bully, or to file a grievance at work. That's the only way that you can get some justice and some peace. But ultimately, just as the Torah was there for peace, Jesus is telling us, telling the people of his day, just do it. Start dealing with the conflicts before they grow into divorce, before they grow into murder, before they grow into false witness, and so on and so forth. So how do we do that? We have to start to try. We have to start not to just hold resentments inside. Look at the different ways that you deal with conflict in your own lives. Look at them. Do they work? Are you happy with the outcomes of the particular strategies you use for conflict? Do they coincide with your Christian faith? And if they don't, start working on it. Jesus will give you the faith. Jesus will give you the confidence. Because he's talking about peace, and he's talking about love. He's talking about acceptance of each one of us, by the group, by other individuals. He's talking about unconditional love. That's what we all want, isn't it? So maybe it is tough love. Maybe it is like a cannonball. But it's what we want. So let's do what we want. Let's do what Jesus is calling us to be. Peacemakers in our world. Amen.